Hello, today we're talking about what messages women's clothing and women's appearance sends about them. And I'm here with a special guest today, Maria Al Masani. Welcome, Maria. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are very qualified to talk about women's appearance and what it means?
Good morning. Um, I'm an haute couturier. That means I've studied haute couture. I was a Miss Universe finalist. And I've studied human psychology a lot, used to work in politics, parliament. And yeah, so I do study what female appearance means and how to also dress for success and get ahead.
Excellent. You know, it wasn't very long ago, a few months ago, I put out a post and I said that men prefer women with a certain cluster of appearance things. So, attractive, which meant fitness, clear skin, long hair. I said, women to
Yeah,
be debt free is good, virgins. But for appearance wise, I said, no tattoos and a kind of a clean look. And
of course, because you, if you are looking to build a legacy, you are looking for a woman with a slow life history because you're going for slow life history,
yeah.
right? So why would you want someone with a fast life history from a broken environment who, because of their environment, have a belief that live fast, die young? And
Hmm.
that's what tattoos signal in women, right? A fast life history. So if you're going to build a legacy, why would you build someone who doesn't in, who intends to die before her children are 18? So wouldn't you go for someone who, if you're building a legacy to for descendants and descendants after that, someone who shares the same goals, like attracts like. It shouldn't be controversial. I find that a lot of modern Western 50-50 feminism after the 21st century, we should relabel it rich meninism. It doesn't benefit women at all. It just gets red pill MGTOW pickup artists and Weinsteins, Epsteins leeching off of women, taking advantage of them, using them for one thing only, and then discarding them after they, lose some of their fertility. I don't see how that benefits women, and I am a woman empowerment activist. I don't call myself a feminist because I don't want to be confused with women who are like, I hate all men and so on. I'm not a misandrist. I am for getting women to get ahead, whether they want a successful marriage, successful career, whatever their life goals are. And to do that, you do have to be realistic and not live in fairy tales. So, yes, if you're signaling that you are going to live fast and die young, you're going to get, some rapper who will use you, a playboy who'll use you once, discard you, forget what's your name, and he wants to live fast and die young, and he'll die in a shootout, and you'll die of drugs, and you'll both die happy. But if you want a long-term marriage and to have grandchildren, to know the names of your grandchildren, for your grandchildren to have kids, and to see your great grandchildren in your lifetime, you should signal that. Clothing is a language. So I wish to teach people how to speak with their clothing the way they speak English. Because if you want to say, hey, I want a long-term legacy, well, then you should say that with your clothing. But what's really funny is women do have some gestures that come out subconsciously. For example, California has a 75% divorce rate. And I call it divorce rate because under Western law, because the woman just takes everything, and the divorces are initiated 61% by men. Utah has a 16% divorce rate. So therefore, women in Utah have a marriage marketplace value at 5 times a California woman. So if a woman wants to get a husband and get ahead, she should not look at fashion trends out of California, but look at what elite Mormon women wear in Utah, and therefore she will be far more likely to secure a husband. In fact, there's a gold digging movement, and that's what they're doing. They're thinking, okay, I am a beautiful young woman, I have fertility, I have a great marriage marketplace value, I am providing value. Why can't I exchange this value for a man of means, and those women are actually going for, there's even this thing called school of affluence and so on. So they're going for to marry a man for love and money, and then they're thinking, okay, so I want to be as attractive as possible. What are these men looking for? And they actually dress modestly because they think, okay, if a man has high value, how do I offer him value? Reducing the likelihood of him getting divorced, okay? That offers value. Who has that highest value? Women in Utah. Okay, let's copy their attributes at least.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting. When I made this comment, there was a surprisingly large number of obviously traumatized women. They were sending out messages that they're traumatized. Their hair was strange colors. They dressed like they were belonging to some sort of biker gang or something, covered in tattoos. And they said, I have no problem getting attention from men. Of course, men want to sleep with them. They don't
Well,
get
that's
anyone offering
exactly
them
it.
a lifelong partnership.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. The one thing I do teach, because I find a lot of women, they first come for the clothing, but then they see I'm happily married and they ask how that happened. And I often give accidental relationship coaching much more than I give with clothing for women. But what I teach is there is a marriage marketplace and a sexual marketplace. As women, we have a mirror imaging bias. We won't, women won't sleep with a man they don't intend to marry somewhere down the line unless they have extreme mental health issues. So for women, the marriage and sexual marketplace is the same when we rate a man. Now for men, it's different. There's a sexual and marriage market. They're very different. Did you know that sheep, goats, donkeys, dildos, these things, and the male version of dildo, blow-up dolls, they all compete in the sexual marketplace. Has a man ever married a blow-up doll? No. There was a joke that back in the day, some Scottish people used to do unfortunate things with sheep. And so there was a joke that why do Scottish men wear kilts? Because zippers scare sheep. Now,
Yeah.
it's an unfortunate joke, but it illustrates that these sheep compete in the sexual marketplace. Have you ever heard of a man in Scottish history marrying a sheep or a goat? No. Also, ISIS, they rape goats. So ISIS are very known goat rapists. Also, the Taliban, there has been footage of them raping goats. Have you seen a member of ISIS or the Taliban marrying a goat? No. So goats, a lot of other unsavory things, blow-up dolls, etc. These things are on the sexual marketplace. And all women who are under the age of 40 compete with farm animals in the sexual marketplace. That does not mean a man will marry you any more than a goat, right? But men,
And a lot of women, they end up behaving almost like animals, and they end up getting treated like animals.
yeah,
It
because
leaves
the
them.
marriage market is very different. Men are as picky, if not more picky than women with who they spend the rest of their life with. But men are completely not picky because there are two strategies to reproduce for men and only one strategy to reproduce for women. Men can spread their seeds, spray and pray, or they can pick a mate and spend the time and resources with offspring to ensure a legacy. So so the first one to spray and pray, it's the R strategy, and the second strategy is uh, the
Is the K
legacy
strategy,
strategy,
yeah.
right?
The high
So
investment strategy.
yeah, so if you are going for a man with a legacy and investment strategy, you should signal that like attracts like. If you are going for an R strategy yourself, like Winston Churchill's mother, she was quite infamous with her hanky panky, let's say.
Ventures.
And so she had a tattoo and she signaled it, right? So, I mean, if you are, especially in this modern age, signaling you are an R strategist, why would someone risk a 75% chance of divorce with you? Why not signal that you are a legacy strategist?
Yeah,
Like,
and
signal
it
what
works
you
very
want to
well.
say.
In the tattoo, in more than perhaps any other signaling that women can use is more effective because of the permanence of it. A woman can dye her hair a weird color on a whim. She can put on clothes that are more provocative, and then she can change afterwards. It's not as permanent. The tattoo, because of its permanence, is a more strong indicator of her preferences.
Absolutely. It indicates she's an art strategist. Like, why would you do something so permanent unless there's an issue? And a lot of women, why they got a tattoo, they're from a broken home, or they got molested, or something bad happened to them in the past, and they create this tattoo to overcome their pain and to advertise that they're broken. So it's really unfortunate to say, okay, you're advertising that something went wrong with your life and you are a higher risk in a world in the West where when men divorce, they lose a lot of their property. This is not the Middle East or Saudi Arabia where a man has a chance. Like, maybe in Saudi Arabia you can go and have a tattoo under Sharia law or something, I don't know. But where men tend to really lose in divorce courts, you say that you are a high risk individual. So men are like, okay, you're a high risk individual. They will use you for one thing, but they're not going to risk all the assets that they've accumulated on someone who advertises that they're a risk. It's very sad, it's very unfortunate, but if you advertise that you are a risk, well, you're going to have a much harder time with somebody taking that risk.
And you, excuse me, you also have, there's always going to be, if you lower your standards enough, there'll always be some man that might want to take that risk because he has no other options because his quality is so low. But
That's
then
how Karens are made.
exactly. And then you end up with women very deeply unhappy with their relationships because they are better in every way than the man they chose to marry because they ended up lowering their expectations so low.
I
It
wouldn't
is,
say that
you know,
they're better.
sorry?
You marry who's at your level, but how Karens become a Karen is they when they're younger, they sleep around quite often. And they think that if they sleep with the football captain that he likes them, or sleeping with half the football team, that they're all going to marry them, that they're going to be in a polygamous marriage with 5 alpha males. This does not benefit those men and doesn't help. And then they go into university and they have a little fun with, Chad, Tyrone, Brad, Fernando, Mohammed, and so on. Those guys only use them for one thing. And they're alpha males, and they're like, oh, I was intimate with an alpha male. They're like very excited about it and think that therefore they have a value to the alpha male. But realistically, average Joe, the from State Farm, is the guy, if they look at their looks realistically, because they're not putting in effort if they're partying everywhere. I mean, how do you look if you party? You don't look all that great. So it's not the look of a woman who takes care of herself. So Karens party around and then gain some weight from the beer and all of this. And so the guys use them because they're easy, not because, oh my God, she's hot, right? She may have been hot in high school, but add the freshman 15 pounds and add the beer from, when you're in your 20s, this stuff starts sticking to you. You're not longer a teenager. And then, so by the time she's, used the male amusement park, unfortunately, and she becomes 30 years old, this guy from State Farm, she's just too used up and banged around for him.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, but no. And
Well, and then they
hard
wonder why
feelings.
he's looking at a 22-year-old.
Yeah, he's probably married his high school sweetheart, or he's looking at the younger version of her. Exactly. He's looking at the girl who just graduated university. See, he didn't have much market value when he first took the job at State Farm at 23, and she was going around with everyone. But how much wealth did he accumulate by the time he is 30? He probably has his own home and mortgage and everything, and he's doing great, right? So he has a little nest, and by even 28, he's ready to settle down and find a nice wife. And by that time, she has a difficulty pair bonding. So he's like, sorry, Karen, no, at 28. But at 23, he was paying attention to her, and she would friend zone him and not give him the time of day. So she finds him on Facebook at 28. And then he's like, sorry, Karen, who are you? Karen? Oh my God, Karen. Wow, she looks like Karen's mother. So it's like, you Karen's mother? No, I'm Karen. Ooh, oops.
That
Oh,
has
can you go
happened
out
to me
with
a few
me?
times.
You look like when I saw your mom last. No
Yeah.
thanks. You did not age well. And they do, like, if you have a R strategy lifestyle and you're partying and living it up, you age fast.
Yeah.
So he's like, nope. And then she has to stick with Beta Bob, or the Beta Bucks guy. And this guy is pretty much a loser who barely even has a job or whatever, has a boring job, or he just has a doormat personality. And she settles with him and then cuts off her haircut. She goes to basement Karens who live in the suburbs, and the basement Karen goes to Walmart and she has a male shaver, a pair of scissors, and some disgusting, I don't know, some kind of a bleach, maybe Clorox for the hair or something. And yeah, and they make amateur haircuts for other Karens, so the Karens spawn from the basement of the basement Karen hairstylist, or hair amateurist, whatever you want to call her. And yeah, they kind of give up on life and are very angry and bitter that they're with Beta Bob. And each time they can, they take it out by on Starbucks employees, and always, I want to speak to the manager. That's always them. And you can just see that their former thoughts who had to settle down with Beta Bob because nobody else would take them. So they're like, see, mother, I am just like you. I got married and I have two kids. Whereas they're not just like their mother.
No.
They their mother married the man she loved, and these women had to settle because the guy at their level, Joe from State Farm, just will not give them the time of day by the time they're 30. If they had understand how life works, that men using them for one thing does not mean that they will like them, then they will, I mean, that does not mean that they'll even marry them. Then they would be realistic with their options and think, okay, you know what? He might not be a football player, but Joe from State Farm is actually not bad looking, and okay, his job is boring, but he has a potential future. He'll have a mortgage, good place to raise, good man to raise kids with. He's not a doormat. Okay, he's not the head of the football team, but I'm not the top cheerleader either, so I think it works. So that's the how most people got married in the 1950s. In the 1950s, average women got married, ugly women got married, all women got married. Now, only elite women get married, and many of them struggle. Like, for example, Irina Shayk, Kylie Jenner, she can't get her baby daddy to marry her. Bradley Cooper, his girlfriend, Irina Shayk, is a supermodel, and he was not very interested and was cavorting with Lady Gaga. So, in this generation, women have a much harder time because they feel too arrogant to want to understand male psychology.
And I think they eventually get to a point where they understand because it literally hits them in the face, but it's too late.
Yeah.
And I have seen women that have it's too late for them, and they get this kind of Snow White's stepmother thing where they're okay. I don't have the looks anymore. I'm going to take it out on the younger generation, and they encourage the younger generation to make the same mistakes they did
Yeah.
because that's a way to take out their bitterness on someone else.
Yes, absolutely. And they beat the younger generation into hazard.
Yep.
So I realized, these days in a secular society, The only thing that works against bullies is to expose them and bully against them harder. To
Yeah.
say you're baiting people into hazard, you're a manipulator, you're a sociopath, you are using the OGSSRM plus M method, and that is ostracism, gossip, rallying, ridicule, shaming, moralizing, plus manipulation. And there are lots of manipulation tactics if you study psychology. For example, framing, gaslighting, etc. You just have to expose the manipulation tactic they use and say, no, you are a manipulator and you're taking this out on other women. You're not helping other women get ahead. You're just manipulating.
Hmm. And
So
I always,
you would use reason and logic if you really believed in what you believe instead of being a bully.
tell women that if you're going to take relationship advice from a woman, the only women you should take relationship advice from are attractive married women.
Exactly.
Because if they're not attractive, they might be bitter Karens. If they're not married, how do you know that they know anything about relationships? And
Well,
so
exactly.
there is this narrow group of women that give good advice. And in fact, every woman, I know a few women that occasionally women will want advice from another woman, and that's where I will send them because I know, and it's always attractive, married, happily married women. They
Yeah.
give the best advice. They don't have the bitterness, they have the experience, and they know what works.
That's very, very interesting because as a happily married woman, and I'm a couturier, I'm also a jewelry designer. So at first, I help women with their clothes, with their color season, and how to wear clothes that's the most flattering for them and helps them get ahead with their goal. Then, when I start talking about their goal, the next thing I'm usually doing is giving them relationship advice because I talk realistically about my life experience.
Well, and also too, whatever a woman's goal, almost all of their goals will be easier if they choose well in their relationships. I think a lot of people
Yes,
don't realize that even if your goal isn't to have children, choosing choosing a good compatible relationship is going to help you. Now, men kind of understand that they know if they marry the wrong woman, the rest of their life will be a living hell. But it can be just as bad for women. They need to understand how important it is to have the right men in their life.
it's not only that. One thing I do because for career advice for women who want to do well, maximize their sales, and so on, I say, well, okay, let's look, know your client. That's one thing. With them is something I teach what's in it for me. So you have to know what's in it for you and what's in it for your client or your target, right? So you want to get this job, you want to make a sale, you want to impress a boss. Okay, who are all the executives at the top? Can you tell me one thing about them? What's the majority of them? They're always male. Why? The majority of them will always be male. Look at Forbes, look at the top list. Who are at the top? Who are the billionaires? The majority are male. And this is for a very good reason, and it's not a sexist thing. It's about priorities. You see family man, you don't hear career man, but you hear career woman, which is silly because at the end, men don't, men work to live, not live to work. So women will very intelligent, the smartest women, most of them who want kids, the smartest women who want kids, they all drop out. The top legal firms cannot retain their top women since the 30s because you want to raise your kids in the healthiest, happiest environment. And that means when the children are small, the mother has to be with them. Then these lawyers will often have a real estate job, part-time job, which is amazing because, when the kids are in school, the mother's having a part-time job, which is great because, you know, God forbid she's widowed or something. She can go full-time into that, but the law degree is not very useful. You can't make partner if you're working part-time, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at your profession, the people at the top of the profession are straight males usually. Therefore, if you want to dress, you should dress like a person that a straight male will identify as a healthy, mentally balanced woman, because again, you want to reduce your risk when you're doing business, regardless of your gender. If you see
That's an
somebody who's dressed in
interesting
a risky way,
That's
Would
an
you do
interesting
business?
that's an interesting point you bring up. When I often talk about women's appearance, women who are dysfunctional will always bring it back to sex because that's the only thing they can relate it to. But it's not just about that. A lot of women don't realize how much power they have to influence men when the men see them as being well put together and healthy and psychologically fit. You know, I
Yeah,
told someone recently this, that she will get more clients for her business if she is more fit.
yeah,
Even this even works for men, but this works very well for women. And dressing in such a way that you send the message that I am a responsible person that can take on this project you've given me, and I'm going to be easy to
absolutely.
deal with. You know, I'm going to be a pleasant person to do business with. That makes a big difference to being accepted for contracts. It's not you know, we do judge a book by its cover, and when you're an executive, you have to judge many people and many situations quickly, so you have to have a shortcut to it, and appearance is a
Absolutely.
great shortcut.
Yeah, Tony Robbins said that in the beginning, style matters over substance because you have just no time to look at the substance. Let's look at job interviews. I always say job interviews are the same as Miss Universe or beauty pageants, as upsetting as that is to people. Because really, there are 200 people, there are thousands of people. Now, let's say for a top engineer position, does the top engineer need an MA in English? Does he really or she really need to know how to spell perfectly and perfect grammar and syntax? No. But any grammar mistakes, period in the wrong place, anything like this, misplaced comma, they throw it out. Why? Because you want to reduce the stack of resumes, right? So eventually, by the time they will get it to 200 people, then you do group interviews, right? And to reduce. So within the group interviews, they will reduce it to 20 people. So 80 people. So you will be first judged by your appearance. They think, okay, does this person look reliable? Do they look sensible? Do they look like a good decision maker? Or do they look like a high risk? So for women in the workplace, tattoos are a bigger liability than actually dating because the competition for jobs is much higher. There are fewer people who are, especially in when the economy is bad, there are fewer people there are much more people who are looking for work than their jobs, where there are men who are willing to settle down. There are more men willing to settle down than there are people willing to hire you in a
Mhm.
bad economy.
Yeah.
So therefore, the tattoo is actually a bigger liability for a woman trying to find a job because it just signals that she might be harder to work with. She might be difficult. Who wants somebody difficult? The same reason why if you many employers in Canada will privately say that if you remove university from your resume and only put college, um, basically trades, anything like this, that you have a secretary background from a college, didn't go to university, you'll be at the top of the pile. Because right now with progressives, they have a anti-capitalist and man-hate attitude and a victim culture. So having a victim culture, you remove responsibility for your mistakes. We all make mistakes and they're very embarrassing, but you can be unembarrassed, unlike the rest of us, by creating a oppressor for yourself. So it's a shortcut. You don't have to take responsibility if you blame someone else as an oppressor. So for, you know, third wave intersectional feminists who believe in a intersectionality of multiple oppressions, they will find somebody to be their oppressor. So that will be their roommate. I've had an unfortunate roommate like that before I got married. Um, Everything was great, but then after a while, the closest person to them is their oppressor. So that became the oppressor. It was like, and she was a very white privileged princess. So, and she was into social justice. So it was like, okay, great. So I'm suddenly the oppressor. That's not logical, but that's what they do in practical terms. The employer is the oppressor, their boyfriend is the oppressor, their husband is the oppressor. So they become very difficult to work with, unreliable employees, and a high risk. And you know, if there are 200 people that you can choose from, why choose them?
Yeah.
It's a competitive work environment. So you pick people who show that they are chill, easy to work with, pleasant to work with, take direction well, reliable, responsible. We're not looking for a person to be the queen of the runway. We're not looking for anything crazy, just really basic stuff. Is the person reliable? Also, for creative positions, you want to show that, yes, the person has a bit of creativity, but at the same time that they're still reliable, will do things close enough to deadline, and are not mentally insane, are not a jerk, and will um, be responsible.
Yeah, I've seen a big misunderstanding of this very often is creatives think that the more weird or controversial they look, that signals that they're creative, but they end up all looking weird and controversial in the exact same way.
Of course, people who
And
dress in tribes.
yeah, if you instead go in and signal that I have good aesthetic taste, I would prefer for a creative project someone with good aesthetic taste over someone that was just be able to create massive amounts of creation. I want them what they do to have be aesthetically pleasing. I've talked to people about this before, not to if you're looking for a spouse or you're looking for someone to hire, uh, always, if you can, pick the person that has better aesthetic taste over the one that doesn't, because having good aesthetics means that you have empathy for other people because you are creating an environment which will be attractive to them. I don't look at myself, other people do. So if I
Yeah,
create a
that's
good
what we're
environment,
told
yeah, I'm being
growing up,
empathetic.
that your looks are are respect to other people. When
Hmm.
you dress well, this is you're respecting others. It's not that you spend your day looking at the mirror. This is not why I put on makeup today, but I put on makeup out of respect towards you, out of respect towards the viewers. It's respect. Therefore, because I'm being respectful, you don't see Instagram makeup on me, Kim Kardashian contour and all of that stuff. You know, and then stars and all this whatever they do on the Instagram. No, right?
A fake tan that's 10 levels deeper than your actual skin color.
Yeah, and then highlights that's 10 levels lighter, or whatever is the fashion thing, and then green eyeshadow, or it's purple now. That's the fashion. I don't know.
Whatever makes
I
the
don't follow.
person look the most weird seems to be the fashion.
Yeah, that is actually mainstream fashion. I call it a circus. Emily Post correctly ahead of her time, because before Hollywood, you'd have rich people were in the press. She said if a rich person is in the press, well, in high society, it's like a high school. They're the clown. They're not the prom queen or prom king, right? They're the clown. And our media, I love to teach people that the media is just a circus where the biggest clown is there for the most entertaining, will have the most airtime. If you want to dress for success, you should never follow anyone and dress classics, dress the best for yourself. However, there is one person I tell everyone to follow, and that's Kylie Jenner. Also the Kardashians in general. It's good to follow them, because what happens is it's very unfortunate, but there is this, since women dress tribally, there is low self-esteem women worldwide will copy that look head to toe. So if you don't want to be mistaken for low self-esteem women, and in some countries that low self-esteem women are the easiest too, so you really don't want to be like, just you're wearing something and Kylie Jenner happens to be wearing the same, I don't know, makeup, whatever it is, and it's classy, but she just appropriated it and then wore it with ugly shoes and showing her entire cleavage or whatever it is.
Yeah,
You wear
bad
it classy.
examples are important to take note of as well, not just good examples.
Yeah, it's tribal, right? So right now, all insecure women tend to copy, especially Kylie Jenner, Kardashians. So it's good every once in a while to know, okay, if I have something that she has in her wardrobe, I'll retire it for a year. Her fans will stop copying in a year or two, then I can wear it back. Like right now, one of the things that I tell women to retire are Louis Vuitton big logo handbags, because 90% of them are fake, and everyone and their aunt is wearing a fake one and they're copying them. And it's just, men see the bag and they're like, oh, that's like the Insta thought. And you really don't want that. You want to dress classy. And when it comes to logos, I think less is more. Just have a subtle one if you're obsessed with that. A brand is simply a promise it makes to the marketplace. It's a promise of quality. Have all your clothes quality. If you are really, really need a logo, okay, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going the French way of logos are death. No, just enjoy your life. But just if some of your clothes happens to have a small one, don't throw them out. Keep them. Don't waste things. But and if you have two things that have a logo, you can't wear them together. Just have one little one if you have to, and go out the house. But wear quality just to show that, yeah, I'm a respectful person. In China and in Japan, what's really interesting, 70% of women have something from either Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. For them, it's a form of showing respect to other people. So it's one thing that you show respect. You can have a logo. You can have something else to signify quality. Like wearing leather is a great way to show quality, like having for women a leather handbag. That's a real leather, shows that they're a person of quality. They invest in quality. They invest in themselves. It's something that women just don't realize, that yeah, if you wear quality clothes instead of whatever is the fashion at H&M, but dress the old Parisian way, as in what they would do is they would save money. So you can save $1,000, but get a good sheath dress that's professional, and then get it altered at alterations, and make sure it has darts. That's very key, because stretch is for cheap clothes and they don't last. So it has to have like 100% cotton, 100% Italian wool, 100% silk, something pure, good quality fabric, and then you get it altered to fit your figure. It's very good to invest in a color season consultation to know what clothes suit you, because affluent people, for them a designer is not a rock star. It's an employee. They just fly Stefano Gabbana of Dolce and Gabbana to their home, or Giorgio Armani, and they take their measurements. The team take their measurements. They make sure the thing is the most flattering to the client. They don't see what's on the runway. If you're that affluent, you don't see what's on the runway. You have the designers come to you and you pick, okay, who makes the thing that's the most flattering to you? Because you are the star, because you are the client, and you're paying. The runways are just for middle class fools looking at a circus. I mean, who buys from them? The reality is the most affluent people have a couturier who make clothes that suit them and their goals. For example, making the most money, getting them a marriage, whatever your life goals are. And my favorite quote was by Edith Head, who designed all the old Hollywood glamour. For women, she said clothes should be tight enough to show that she's a woman and not a man, but loose enough that she's a lady.
Mm. Yes, that's a great quote, and it shows of the necessity for balance in the clothing.
Yeah.
If I make a comment to a person who is healthy about clothing, they understand that balance, and if they're not healthy, they'll tend to respond back, with an extreme. So you're saying I should, and they'll come up with an extreme.
Well, that's why nobody likes American women. Sadly, that's the reputation of American women, North American women, Canadian women. Sadly, there's an
and British,
international bad rap
unfortunately, as well.
where Russian women are the most, and then also Ukrainian women are considered the most beautiful, most attractive in the world. Why? And I'm half Russian. Because we don't take this stuff personally. When I went to Moscow and I came there to see my family as a tourist, I got these shoes that I was going to throw them away. The bottom of the heel ran out, and they're old. So everyone at the subway station was telling me, "Oh, excuse me, madame, the bottom of your shoe, the bottom of your shoe. I had to, in order to stop the shoe comments, I had to buy shoes right there. Before I went home, where I had my proper shoes, I realized, okay, and they were very, very kind because they try to help you out because they understand in developing countries, you're not going to get ahead in your job interview with sloppy shoes. If you are trying to attract a man, that's you're not going to get it sloppy shoes and so on in a highly competitive environment. Also, in Russia, the gender ratio has always been, with the wars, a lot of women for one man. So everyone understands that, hey, helping people out is a positive thing. If Russian women will not break down or get triggered, even if they're traumatized, if someone says, "Excuse me, madame, um, your hair is this. Excuse me, madame, this tattoo, you could cover it up a little bit, and I am sure your date or job interview will be much more successful." Like people on the street there in Eastern Europe will go and tell you right up front, very kindly, because they care. They're a caring society. Not always, but they try to, when people are kind, they don't want you to live in La La Land. They
Well,
want
we've
you to get
detached
ahead in life.
in North America, and I'm originally from Canada myself, and in North America, we have detached from community, and we've become these rootless individuals that
Hmm.
don't really know anyone and don't really like anyone, and we're so, as you mentioned, the victim culture makes you very self-centered and focused on
Yeah,
your own, and then focused on finding someone to blame. You
yeah,
can't connect with people if you view them as your oppressor, and
absolutely.
and if you view them that way, you're not going to help them, and they're not going to help
Absolutely.
you. And if they do help you, you'll assume that it's actually an attack,
Yeah,
and so you get this antagonistic culture. I think we've had this almost 6 weeks now, maybe we're going on 7 of lockdown,
hmm,
and I think they're starting to miss socializing a bit, and I think people have had some time, they're thinking about, actually, we don't treat each other well, and I hear more and more people talking about that they wish they had a tighter social networks, and they notice it now because if you go to work, you're forced into a room with a bunch of people, you get some socialization. We're not doing that now, and so if you don't have real friends, you're all alone,
yeah.
and
What
people are
I
starting to
really
figure that
miss,
out.
what I really miss from lockdown, from before the lockdown, is my manicurist.
Yeah, no,
My
it's
nails are still bad.
that's cute. Yeah, well, don't worry, we only see you from the head up, so just don't show your nails. No,
Yeah, but that is really actually very astute observation because aside, like I have great friends, I have a great spouse, so I mean, business is suffering, of course, from the lockdown, but I just find, oh, now I have more time to, talk to people I care about, right?
because you
So,
have people you care about in your life. There is a friend of mine pointed this out in the summer. We went spent a week vacation with another couple with kids. My wife and I spent a week with them, and he said, he says, I'm very glad that my daughter is good looking. He says she's going to be a beautiful young girl, because he says normally attractive people tend to be more pleasant.
yeah,
And I said to him, this is the exact opposite of what popular culture will tell you. In the movies, the attractive women are always the horrible ones, and it's the ugly one that's the nice one. And it's not.
that's not true in real life.
It's
I'm a
not.
former ugly girl. I can tell you, I used to be a bitch.
Well,
Well, but I look like a boy, and it took me a while to realize that straight men aren't gay.
well, that is an interesting. Observation. Is that the more masculine a woman looks, the more effeminate the men she's going to attract are. And you'll see this. You see these couples where the woman is like big and tall and fat and short hair like a man, and the guy looks like he's thin and effeminate and looks like a woman. And it's nature wants balance. So if she's going to be very masculine, she's going to get a very feminine man.
I don't think so. I really don't think. I mean, yes, I see those couples, but I have a different analysis
Hmm.
of carenology. I think that those men have such low self-esteem. What I've noticed, those men have such low self-esteem. If you look at who they are have crushes on, but won't dare approach,
Hmm.
these are very feminine women. Men are kind of in a way, male sexuality is very, men are built very similar and women are different. But men with low self, men who are effeminate are not attractive to women. So when I was single and effeminate men were hitting on me, I just was really disgusted and would run as fast as possible. We are attracted to him, and I'm a very masculine woman, so I just grew up. I have autism, and I grew up in a very masculine culture and so on in Yemen. And I'm also half Russian. My military family, this sort of thing. My father was the advisor to Yemen's former president, so it's very like I grew up just looking at Abrams tanks, seeing which one should we buy for the army, Um,
Well, and
most
you're a
equipment.
good example of a woman who has perhaps a masculine structured mind, but you understand the importance of femininity and of dressing in such a way to send a positive message out there. And
Oh yeah,
it is good.
I'm not an involuntary celibate. I'm happily married. I understand straight men are not gay, but also I have a very masculine Ukrainian husband who is more masculine than me. So with him, I feel like a very feminine woman. I feel like a girl. I love it. It's wonderful. With him, I feel like a woman. But I would say because I am so masculine, with half the male population in Canada, I just I feel I feel a lot like with the leftists, they're such girls, and I ask them like, so they have troubles in their life, and I'm like, okay, look, let me teach you pickup and how to get girls. I will drag you to the club, and I will
Step
teach
number
you by the
one, lift
numbers.
heavy things and eat more food because you're too skinny.
No,
That's,
they are often fat and have man boobs from
oh,
the
yeah.
soy.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
they're
tell
either
them,
fat or way too skinny, one or the
yeah,
other.
they're too fat or too skinny. So the first thing I say, well, you know what? I tried the vegetarianism, vegan stuff for a month, and my bottom half, I thought I'd be nicely plump, but no, with my figure, I got a dinosaur tail. I got a Batasaurus Rex. So I then had to lose all the weight. You know, veganism makes you gain weight. So in order to get rid of the man boobs, stop the soy and drink real milk from actual cows. Makes a huge difference. And then learn to eat steak once a week, like food, like real food. If you have meat and vegetables and cut out the carbs, because that's close to the caveman diet of our ancestors, you're not going to look like a cow if you drink milk from a cow. you know, these boys, this I don't know, this soy milk really scares me. So when I am at Starbucks and I feel I poured myself soy milk accidentally, because of the association with the men who have a bigger bosom than I do, I throw it out. It's just, and then they have the stomach and everything. It's like, no, that's not healthy. That's not attractive. You have to eat food close to what your ancestors ate. And there's this other thing that makes a huge difference for men. Do you know what it's called? A gym.
Mm.
And in the gym, there are these things. They're called weights. Very, very useful. So that's I think the beginning is to get them on a gym, then to teach them to stand up for themselves, to be assertive, stop being a doormat. Uh, Women are one standard deviation more agreeable than men. I mean, I'm not on the spectrum there, but the average female, right, is one standard more deviation agreeable than the average Joe. She doesn't want average Joe. She wants the male CEO, executive, and he's 2 standard deviations more disagreeable. And also close to him, slightly more disagreeable, is the jerk, the guys in the prisons, and you know the bad boys, the drug dealers. They're extremely disagreeable, right? So women are more attracted to disagreeable men, but a male CEO is not the same as a drug dealer. And it's very hard, I think, for with atheism and secularism in the second generation for women to distinguish because they're both far more disagreeable than them. The CEO or guy who's on the fast track for promotion, because if you look at studies, what predicts a man's capacity to earn if the education is equal is his disagreeableness.
Hmm.
So, I mean, up to a point, right? There is a,
What I think with the difference between the two groups is that one man is disagreeable, but he has that masculine energy under control.
yeah,
He's got it in a harnessed to be useful. And the other
he is
man, his
peaceful.
masculine energy is out of control. He can even have
Yes,
more masculine energy, but it's not, it's like a forest fire. It's just burning everything as
yeah,
opposed to like a forge where he's going to make stuff out of it with the heat.
yes, exactly. It is the control. And I say there's a huge difference between being peaceful and a harmless rabbit. To be peaceful, you have the capacity for violence, but you choose to put your sword in its sheath when you walk outside.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you
that
can't have a peaceful nation when you are incapable of defending yourself because all you look like is a victim then.
yeah, that's a harmless rabbit. And as Dr. Jordan Peterson said, there's no virtue in being a harmless rabbit. You just get eaten. So a lot of these men mistake the alpha quality of so alpha silverback gorillas have two qualities. So they are peaceful. They don't initiate violence, but if there is violence towards them or a need for violence, they are the most violent gorilla in the group.
And
And
it
that's an
is
alpha male.
interesting that they also externalize their view of what is them to the group. So the group is their property. And if
Yeah,
someone threatens the group, then
they
they
will
get
crush
into
them.
action. Now, the ability, you have to remain peaceful most of the time or you burn yourself out and can't defend the group.
But what they do actually, because the group is their property in a way, they spend most of their time resolving disputes with females.
Mhm.
In the monarchy in the Middle East is called mulk, or mamlaka is ownership, right? The king owns, this is his property. So the king invests in his property that he owns, right? So so people, the property of the king is the people. So the king doesn't go and hurt the people or anything like this. He tries to raise the people up and create a better life for him. But someone tries to go after his people, he will break their neck, right? There'll be a war. And so that's the alpha male. I think there are three, I call them three types: alpha male, beta male, gamma male.
Mhm.
The gamma male, it's when you have a group of gorillas, right? So you have the alpha silverback. Then you have disciple monkeys who are trying to like learn from him. One of them will inherit his kingdom. The disciples, that's quite a long-term investment strategy. They're not going to get females over time, and it's a lottery. So when the young monkeys, the teenage adolescent males grow up, in order to get females, they can be a disciple, or there's the beta group, or there's the gamma. Beta as in they hide among the females and pretend to be female and pretend to be harmless, and hopefully someone will give them mercy sex. Maybe. Then the gammas realize this is a very bad strategy, so they start being violent towards the group, and the alpha male is like, one, why are you challenging my authority? Two, why are you violent towards my group? So he kicks them out, and there are gangs of them on the periphery, and they will kill an adult female, gorilla who goes out, I mean, a grandmother gorilla. But they will go once in a while to the periphery of the group to try to rape females, and this is the only way they um, get any, really. So they're they're the three different I mean, really the three different ways to be an alpha, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or to get laid.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
the three different strategies,
yes,
sexual strategies.
yeah, the three different strategies, because the three different strategies of males who are not yet an alpha. And the big problem is I find in Canada there's such a beta male culture where they hope hiding behind females will somehow make them attractive. I'm like, if you're educated, nothing new is under the sun. What is happens to gorillas who are doing your strategy? It doesn't end well for them. Females are not attracted to men who behave in a feminine way because straight women are not lesbians. If they were lesbians, well, the guy has the wrong equipment.
Yeah.
So they should stop drinking the soy, and man up. Or if they're very committed to being feminine, there's this thing called sex change surgery, and they can be a transgender. Like if they're that committed, like to be feminine and imitating Justin Trudeau, there is transgender surgery, and transgenders have been more accepted than ever. So effeminate men are more than welcome to become females and hope a male will find them beautiful.
Well, nature takes them out of the gene pool that way. You know,
Exactly.
it is interesting that, and I've mentioned this before, and it's always shocking when people hear it. Women like disagreeable men. What does that mean? When a woman wants to argue with you, she doesn't want to win the argument. In fact, it doesn't make sense to argue with your woman, because if she wins the argument, you're weak and she won't respect you. If you win the argument, then she's going to be upset about there being an argument. The best thing to be is, no, this is my world and how I've created it. And if you want to come into my world, you have to follow my rules, and create
Yes,
that kind of a
exactly.
situation. And it's a disagreeableness that actually puts women at ease.
Yeah, no, exactly. And what's interesting, being having a masculine mind, it's in the Middle East we call it this being like the third gender, right? So I could go in masculine and feminine spaces. So when I am with men, I don't see myself as feminine and female. I have to remind myself to look female, but uh, and I feel at ease and I feel natural, right? But I don't feel like I am feminine in any way. And I view them platonically, right? And they view me platonically because I'm acting masculine. That's not attractive, which is great. It puts people at the distance where I want them to be because they're not my husband. But then when I go home, I am a feminine woman at home. And so at the end of the day, I like that my husband is the head of the family because that puts me at ease. It makes me feel like a feminine woman. And when I have an issue to discuss, I realize I should not be like the woman yelling at the cat. That's just not classy. I should go and saying, okay, this thing is bothering me and it makes me feel X. How should we deal with it as a family?
And you use the correct terminology there that is important for women to understand. If they need to broach a subject with their husband, they need to talk about how they feel about it. And it's very easy for women to go, you need to do this differently.
Well, that's using a you statement.
Yeah.
That's exactly how relationships break down. If you want to get anything out of anyone, you have to avoid you statements. If you're so upset you use you statements, you go outside and take a walk. You have to say, X makes me feel so on. And then how should we, and use we as much as you can. Because as a team, for example, at work, right? On a team, you have a colleague who keeps interrupting you and it's driving you insane. Will you get anywhere saying, you always interrupt me? They'll say, okay, Karen. It doesn't end well. But if you say, excuse me, can you stop? When I start speaking, I haven't even finished my sentence. And then you start yours. So that makes me feel that I'm not very valued, and that makes me feel not like a valuable member of the team when I know, then you have to add something positive. When I am sure we're on the same team together, we're all valuable, and I have to give them a way out. I am sure this is not how you intend, and you're probably not even realizing what you're doing or how it makes me feel, but it makes me feel, quite sad and disengaged. So could you please don't not do this anymore? And it works. They're
Mm.
like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was interrupting you. But if you're like, you interrupt me, they will start being on the defensive and say, I didn't interrupt you, or interrupting you is the best way of speaking, and you have no balls and no guts, and you just are too weak to understand how interrupting people is awesome. It works the same everywhere because human beings are human beings. Nobody likes to be put on the spot and be told they're bad with a you statement.
And
People,
even about the major subject that we talked about today, what your appearance message that sends is if you send the appearance, especially for women, that I am disagreeable and hard to work with, people will be predisposed to react poorly to your suggestions. And it's even if you
yeah,
approach it well, they're not going to hear what you say. They're going to hear what you look like.
yeah, exactly. It's because, with impressions, there's no second chance for first impression, according to studies, and uh, basically less than 7% of what people hear is the words. Most of it is the clothes. Some of it is your tone of voice and posture. So really, it actually your posture is important. So posture and clothes is the majority. Something like 7% is your tone. Something like 10% is your tone of voice. Something like that, and somewhere about 3% is what the words you are saying. So, I mean, there's scientific study after study after study that we don't hear what people say, we hear what they look like. If the science is out there, then and the media is just covering who's the biggest circus clown. Maybe we shouldn't listen to media and maybe we should listen to science instead.
And that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I think it's a great point to wrap up. It's been a very interesting interview, and I think we produced some real value for the people that are listening. Thank you very much, Maria. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.